Hey, on this episode of Gen X Amplified, I have a conversation with the wonderful Zephrine Hanson, who is a content creator, storyteller, and the founder and owner of Hansons Farms. And we are going to chat about her amazing personal and professional story, her pivot into entrepreneurship as a lavender farmer, and all things mental health and wellness. So, are you ready? Let's do it.
There was lots going into me being mentally unhealthy, me being mentally unwell. Definitely a rock bottom for me. I just had joy in nothing, and farming was how I got that joy back.
Welcome to Gen X Amplified, where we bring you inspirational and entertaining conversations with successful Gen X leaders and entrepreneurs.
This is the show created just for you. The powerful generation between the boomers and millennials to help you amplify your story,
Maximize your impact,
and become Gen Exceptional in business and in life.
Now, here's your host, Adrian Porter.
So I'm going to get right into it. My featured guest today for this special conversation is someone who definitely has been planting the seeds of her success throughout her own personal and professional journey. Now, she is a veteran and currently the founder and owner of Hansons Farms. And she also happens to be my fellow LinkedIn Creator Accelerator Program member, also known as CAP. And she and I were also fellow featured guests on LinkedIn's most recent episode of their monthly live show titled Creator Conversations. But now, I am so honored and thrilled to have her join me for this important, timely conversation where we're going to unpack not only her awesome story, but also talk about the importance of managing your mental health, especially during these middle years. So without further ado, please welcome the phenomenal and the fabulous Zephrine Hanson. Zephrine, what is going on?
Thank you so much, Adrian. That was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful intro. My only goal is to live up to that. Thank you.
Well, listen, you're already living up to it, Zephrine. First, before I go any further, let me just first thank you so much for your service. As I mentioned earlier, you are a veteran, and I definitely thank you for your service.
Thank you. I am glad that I had the experience. It is one of the experiences that I now appreciate in my 40s. Not as much in my 20s, but in my 40s, it makes sense.
No, I totally understand it. Well, speaking of 40s and 20s, let's just start off, Zephrine, just talking about your path. First of all, what led you to join the service? And then let's get into and unpack even more. How in the world did you become a lavender farmer? Because that is such a world that I am very unfamiliar with, but I am so fascinated with. And if you can just walk us through that journey, that would be great.
Absolutely. So I joined the military at 18. I needed college money and I wanted to travel, and I couldn't figure out how to do that. And so the military unfolded in front of me, and that is a very long story. So quickly it unfolded in front of me. And so that's what I did. I was already a photojournalist in school.
Okay.
I was fortunate enough to become a photojournalist in the military. In high school, I was a photojournalist. So when I joined the military, that lane opened up for me. And that has been my direction, is photography and storytelling. I'm always somewhere around that. And I spent 8 years in the military telling stories. We see a lot of things, and I saw heroism and I saw heartbreak, and there came a point where I could no longer process it in a healthy way. So in the military, you are separated, medically separated, essentially laid off. And I had to spend time working on myself. I was probably 24 at the time. So
Okay.
it was jarring to me. I thought I was going to be in the military for 20 plus years. So I was not at all prepared for that. But I got out, I moved back to my hometown, home state of California. I did some photography, finished some school. I got married in that time too. So my husband moved back to California with me. He also got out of the military.
Okay.
And we built a life there. He's a software engineer. I did some freelance photography, and then we had 3 children, and staying at home was the best idea for them. an adjustment for me, because I thought that my stay-at-home career would be much shorter than it ended up being. And so there's that too, that being a stay-at-home mom had a lot of great perks, and it was great. It was the best choice for our family.
Okay.
But also I wasn't prepared to step away from my career in the way, that I had imagined. So
wow.
Fast forward, all of our children are diagnosed to be on the autism spectrum. And
okay.
So we go down this path of finding out therapies and services and how can we support them, because we couldn't find the support in the public school system, and we couldn't find it in the private school system either. So that meant I was staying home a lot longer than I had anticipated. I was doing some freelance and some volunteer work, but getting my career back to what I thought it would look like wasn't happening. And I'm not gonna lie, that was really hard for me. That was extremely hard, especially when you're a woman who can stay home. Sometimes people think, well, you should just be happy. You have this opportunity.
Okay.
And I wasn't initially that happy, Adrian, to be honest.
Yes.
It was not my plan. So I then started focusing on how do I make sure my kids can live in the world and thrive in the world, because I won't be here forever. That's just, part of being in the military, you have a reality about life and death because of the nature of our job. And so I became hyper focused on making sure I got them ready for the world. And we had the opportunity again to move to another state, Colorado, and we moved here, and I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any, I knew some people, but I didn't have a system. And the first group of people I'm looking for when I move is I'm looking for Black people and I'm looking for veterans. I know that I will find somebody in there who will help me do whatever it is I need to do. And so the veteran community was like, are you interested in farming? And I wasn't. I just wanted to be outside, and I wanted to do something for myself that wasn't mom or wife related. I wanted something for me again. And so that's how I got to farming. My veteran community, the Veteran of Farmers is who I went through, and they have a partnership with Denver Botanic Gardens, which now I have a partnership with Denver Botanic Gardens around their lavender. So it's all the things that there were some lows and that did not feel good at all. I will pull no punches there. It didn't feel good to not be able to have the career I wanted, while also I knew it was the best thing for our family. So farming brought me out of this kind of, I guess, funk would be the word.
Right. Wow. Well, let's unpack that a little bit more. There were so many fascinating nuggets in that story, which I think are very important to hear and to go through. First of all, your children. So what are their names and ages, if you don't mind?
Not a problem. Alexander is 14 and Cora and Kayla are 12. They are twins, and I had them on my birthday. So they have lots of energy. They came in here ready to change my whole life. They're like, listen, lady, it will never be the same.
Wow. You said 14, 12, and 12?
Correct.
Cora and Kayla and Alexander, the 14-year-old.
Correct.
Is that Kayla with a K or a C?
Kayla with a K and Cora with a C.
I like that. All right. Well, let's talk about, number one, let's go back a little bit and just talk about that military journey. And you were telling stories during that time, and I'm sure, you solved a lot of things. You experienced a lot of things, both possibly heartache and also things that challenge you, and also just building a community, I'm sure. But, you said it was a very interesting time. Now, later you said you thought that you would have a long career in the military. What sparked that? Why did you initially think that?
Because I saw opportunities for myself that I hadn't seen elsewhere. So I was going to college. I was planning to become commissioned. The nature of being a photojournalist in the military means that I spend a lot of time in the military, they're officers, but, top brass, it's the C-suites. That's who I spend time with in the military. So that was opening doors for me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yep, I'm going to run through all those doors. If General so-and-so will sign my commissioning paperwork or, whisper my name in rooms or say my name, then, I can go forward. And so I saw that opportunity happening. So I was like, yep, that's what I'm going to do.
Wow. I love it. And you said your husband was also in the military. Was he in the same branch as well?
Yes. So we were both in the Air Force.
Air Force,
and he was a graphic artist.
Wow. Two creatives. Okay. How fitting. Now, did you guys energize each other, feed off each other, all that creative energy? Yes. And how does that manifest itself even to this day?
Well, he still does all like my small creative projects, even though he doesn't do graphic works for anyone else. We are really good at, because we were, I believe, military team members first. We're really good at, like, if there's a mission, it's like, just get it done. There's a downside to that too, because then we don't often take in like the emotional toll of being dual career parents. It was stressful when we were dual career in the military. So then now we're parents with children who need some extra support in thriving in the way that the world is set up. You have to take into account that emotional toll. So you can get the work done, but at what cost? And so again, in our 40s, now we have these conversations. We didn't have them at the end of 25 at all, or the end of our 20s.
Right. So Zephrine, let's, you moved to Colorado. Let's talk about that journey, and let's talk about now getting into what you're doing now with Hampton Farms and getting into that industry just by happenstance and through the power of community, the veteran community, correct? And
absolutely.
Had you been fascinated or experienced or showed interest in farming before in that way? And if so, or if not, either way, what was that initial feeling like? Like, take us back to that moment when you initially started to plant those seeds, pun intended, and begin this journey.
Well, I have always been interested in farming. In fourth grade, we took a trip to the Capitol, and part of it was like we went to some farms, and I thought, oh, this is really interesting. But growing up, I just thought, like, look, I need to get an office job and have this fancy life. So it was nothing that I thought I would do. I also had been, when I got out of the military and I was dealing with my PTS and just the depression and anxiety of this life change, I was over medicated and out of shape and had become very unhealthy. So prior to moving to Colorado, I had like gotten into fitness, started doing Spartan races, all these like really pushing myself physically. And when I got to Colorado, I really wanted to know about food more. I knew I had changed my food, but I wanted to I knew that if I wanted to still eat meat, I needed to be able to process a chicken myself. Like that, this was like the mindset I got into.
Wow.
And so that was here. It was like thoughts in the back of my mind, and that started to happen on the community here. And then my community here grew. Then I became very interested in becoming a part of Black and Brown Farmer collectives.
Okay.
Because you don't see us, but we are here. Like, matter of fact, this morning I just saw something on LinkedIn. I saved it, and it was like Black women in food. And I was like, yes. And I like went and found all the women on there. And now I'm going to go, send them all DMs later on today, because I'm looking for that community of all of us to grow our food. So you asked a question about what did it feel like? I was depressed and anxious, and it just felt good to be outside. There's nothing like being outside and just putting your hands in the dirt. And of course, getting to do it in a therapeutic way. It is the way I came to farming, I'd like to highlight, was through therapy.
Okay.
It isn't the same as food growers and land cultivators who are out there, doing very hard labor. I got to come in there and, kind of play in farming.
Wow. So it was part of just that mental health journey, therapy, and then you just fell in love with it, because it sounds like it's been fruitful for you to this day. And talk a little bit more about, the farming community, especially in these underrepresented communities. You mentioned the Black and Brown Farm Collective. You referenced you don't really see a lot of focus or highlight of farmers who are of color. Do you see a sea change, and why do you think that is the case?
I think the pandemic really highlighted that we need to be able to take care of ourselves.
Okay.
The supply chain And I was talking about it before the pandemic, and people were looking at me sideways. Now, even just recently, I received funding for the ideas I had prior
Oh,
to
great.
the pandemic.
Congratulations.
So, yeah. So,
wow.
thank you. So that is part of it, is sometimes you have to be in the right place at the right time.
Okay.
And so what I was talking about in 2018, 2019, people weren't that interested. 2022, having lived through 2 years of a pandemic, people are understanding that importance of it, of making sure that people have, there's food deserts, but then there's supply chain too. So
Right.
how do we change all of that? And there's plenty of people doing it. There's Black and brown farmers I taught. One of the women, you may hear her name, is Leah Penniman.
Okay.
She has a book, Farming While Black. It is my farm Bible. Locally, I work with Frontline Farming. Their director is Fatima Ahmad. She is a professor. She teaches, she farms. She's very well water rights. Like many of the farmers I know, like they come from an academic background too.
Okay.
So it's a type, this wasn't the image I saw of farmers at all, that we were academics, that we were business owners,
Right.
that we care about the land, that we care about policy. Like when I say I love farming, it is connecting me to everything I've ever loved. I love policy. I love photography. I love mental health. I love eating good food. I love being in community. And so it does all of that for me.
Wow. Well, that's great to hear. You know, we're always in this life, no matter what age you are, you're always in search of that opportunity to release and just be, especially when you go through challenges, when you go through stress, when you go through this period of malaise, especially at this age. And it's always great to hear when someone has found that outlet, and not only an outlet, but also in a profession as you're doing. So let's talk a little bit more about the actual profession as far as your company. And then I want to get into the mental health aspect, because you mentioned a couple of things earlier of some of the challenges that you were and are dealing with, and how farming helps with that. And then we're going to really unpack the relevance of this type of approach, especially during this age. But can you just talk a little bit about the model of Hampton Farms, and what exactly do you farm, and the business model, and maybe more about the partnership with the Denver Botanical Gardens?
Yes. So it came out of mental health, is that I was at the farm and I kept wanting to know what they did with vegetables that couldn't be, or fruit, any produce that couldn't, or flowers that couldn't be sold at market.
Okay.
They're seconds or thirds. They're still good. I mean, and every farmer, like, we eat the thirds. Like, if there's like a little mark on that, we're cutting that off and eating it. So I was like, what are we doing with this?
Right.
And so they invited me to study it. And so I started, the first thing I did there was, it was called a self-care CSA, but CSAs are community supported agriculture. And it is where you subscribe essentially to the farmer for the duration of the season. And you'll get X amount of vegetables every week. You don't know exactly what you're getting, but you're going to know that you're getting X amount of things in season. And so I wanted to do that with bath products that I had made from flowers I harvested from the gardens.
Okay.
And so it's called value-added products in farming. At the time, again, people were like, oh, I can kind of see it. Now there are several funds out to do that very thing. So I am excited.
Wow. That is so wonderful. And you talked about your own journey. You mentioned you were depressed, you were over-medicated, you said you were out of shape. A lot of that stemmed from your experience in the military, and also just some of was it because of your own personal and professional malaise of being at home, or wanting to be at home? All of it?
All of it.
Wow.
All of it had come in there. And when we talked about mental health, many of us, I'm going to say in our age bracket, like, our parents did not have the tools that we now have for our children.
Right.
They just didn't. So there was, some childhood trauma, being in the military trauma, life trauma, just this conversation you're having, no one was having back then. So there was lots going into me being mentally unhealthy, me being mentally unwell. But there was definitely a rock bottom for me where there was nothing, like nothing. I just had joy in nothing. And farming was how I got that joy back. And it
Wow.
was actually, it's very scary to be a mother who is struggling in that way. And also I have so much support. I didn't like, I have a therapist, I have great friends, I have a great partner
Mm,
who understands that things can be really hard for me, even when it looks great, to include the cap. This is an amazing opportunity.
right.
But that stress started to creep in, for me, or old narratives about myself. And so I had to deal with that. Like, I couldn't wait to the end of the cap. Like, that had to happen real time.
Right, right. Well, let's unpack this more, because the title and the premise of this conversation is about managing your mental health at midlife, i.e., in your 40s and 50s, and that's literally the lane I sit, and that's what I'm so passionate about, is helping people who are happen to be stressed and stuck in 40 plus get unstressed and unstuck, because there is a phenomenon, and you and I talked about this before we went live, but I also written about this as well, and I talk about it, what they call the U curve of happiness. And there is a phenomenon that happens during your 40s and 50s based on documented truths, research studies, that self-reported level of happiness and work satisfaction starting at adulthood, when you're able to work at 18, tends to be at a high level, right? Based on numerous studies. And then as you get older, throughout your teens and your 20s and your 30s, that level of happiness and work satisfaction tends to go down, right? And then in your 40s and in your 50s, it hits its nadir, its lowest point. And then that's when we tend to experience, when people call it the midlife crisis. I call it more of a midlife or mid-career malaise, really, not to, over exaggerate it. And it's true. But then as you get older into your late 50s, throughout your 60s, and even beyond that, your level of happiness tends to go back up. And if so, this journey follows this U shape, and it's documented. It's called the U curve of happiness. And in my work and what I do, I became so fascinated with this. I mean, I researched, I studied buttloads of data, and it is so true. And my goal is to flatten that U curve and transform that malaise to mastery, and understand, why do we feel this way? But not only why do we feel this way, how do we overcome it, especially during these middle years? And so a lot of that level of unhappiness stems from the fact that when you're in this middle period, and you reference this too, Zephrine, you're battling so many different things. Number one, the expected level of success that you thought about that you would have in your 20s, when you're in your 40s, maybe it's not congruent. Maybe you're not doing the things that you thought you would be doing, whether good or bad, but it's incongruent. Then you have also, if you're blessed to still have your parents around, you're battling aging parents, you're taking care of them. Then you have your kids. You also have your job. If you're happy or not, you may want to pivot. So you have all of these factors that are contributing a lot of times to this stress, to feeling stuck. And for you talked about being depressed, being overmedicated. And then also, which I want to talk about more, you mentioned your 3 children, and they have special needs. And it's something that is one thing that you said that just caught me, and I loved how you framed it. You said your goal is to help them thrive in a world the way it is set up. And can you just talk a little bit more about that dynamic with your kids and how beautiful they are, but also how are you managing your own mental health at the same time, being the mother that you are, managing a business, being a wife, being in your 40s? What's your approach? And just talk a little bit more about that.
A team. Get yourself a team. I mean, prior to the pandemic, we did have help twice a week. And then during the pandemic, that didn't happen. And so we now have a wonderful young woman, college student, who comes in and gives me a break 2 days a week. I'm still at home, but they go to her. Do not talk to me when she's here. Go ask Katila. So and that goes to also hiring the people who can really help you. So she's like a science student. It just really works. She has big sister energy for them, and then hiring an assistant, right? Because I do have several things going on, and learning how to hire, right? We don't always know how to do that.
Right.
And for myself, it's just being honest. This isn't the path that I thought I would be on. I mean, there's something I should have said. When we found out our children were diagnosed, all 3 of them, the therapist, we asked her, like, well, everybody? And so I'll fast forward to it, but she said, well, we're finding out more and more that it's hereditary. So
Really?
so my husband and I were like, and it made sense because many of the things they do, we were just in the era of you better act right. We were in that era.
Wow.
And so there are the way they see the world, they're hyper focused on things.
Okay.
That was me. The reason I was successful in the military is because I was a photographer. I already wanted to be that. I think if I had been anything else, my career would have ended much sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to be a photographer. So that's how I take care of myself, is to be honest that I'm not even seeing the world the way that it's set up. And that's how I got into farming, because for the most part, I can do my day the way I want to. That's why I'm an entrepreneur and work with other entrepreneurs, because I find that many of them would also be diagnosed as being on the spectrum. So they're my people, and it's easier for us to work together.
Yes, I would attest to that. It takes a special soul to be an entrepreneur. And it takes a certain skill and talent. And so first of all, I appreciate you being candid about your own mental health journey and the health of your kids, which I know it's a lot, but also, and you and I have talked about this before, and I've seen you share some great posts about your son and the conversation that I had with Eric Moses and your son's fascination with cars, which
loves cars.
I love
loves cars.
I love that. So as you know,
and Ben 10. That's another thing. We'll talk about that later. He loves Ben 10. So
we definitely have to talk. Well, I used to work for Cartoon Network, and I
know.
I managed to show the marketing for that show, but we'll say that for another conversation. but seriously, so as we talk about this mental health journey throughout your 40s and how you are approaching it and really embracing, I guess, the virtues of some of those things that you have, like you're able to hyper focus, you're able to be creative. And I'm sure you see those virtues in your children, in Alexander, Corey, and Kayla. But as a 40 plus professional entrepreneur, mother, farmer, wife, I asked you what are some of those ways and outlets you're able to deal and thrive with those different dynamics? And you said, get yourself a team. Can we just talk more about, because I love that, and I'm always championing that from the mountaintop, the power of community, and no matter what your age, exactly, no matter what your age, but especially in this middle period where we tend to be so focused and busy that, we're no longer in the confines of a university or a college or high school. We also are focused on our families and our jobs, but sometimes it's a lonely journey. And especially as an entrepreneur, let's just talk a little bit more about some of the benefits and the excitement and the value that you have felt through the power of your community even more.
It's the only way I thrive, really. I mean, even prior to the pandemic, I was part of several veteran groups. Like I said, Black and Brown Growers Collective, Mile High Farmer Grower Collective. If there's a group that I feel the tiniest bit of belonging in, then I'm trying to be in there, because that is where I find information. That is where I find support. The CAP is a great experience.
Yes, it is.
Like, that is 100 colleague creators that I would have never had. And did I get to connect with every single person? No, but my goal is to do that by the end of the year, is to reach out to all 99, as me being 100,
right,
is to reach out and know that we all have the similar feeling. Every creator was like, man, it gets lonely. It gets hard to create. Wow, this is a lot. I thought, at every level, I saw that at every level,
right,
that people were talking about that. And I'm trying to remember, we have someone who has, I think over 1 million followers, but he often referred to his team. And I saw someone else say, I'm so thankful for my editor, right? So she was working her second job doing this, and she had help to do it. So that's what energizes me, is being able to have that community of a therapist, friends who will answer my phone call or use technology. They do not sponsor me, but I am a big fan of Marco Polo.
Okay.
Because your friends can't be on call all the time, but you can leave that, 5-minute call of whether something went really well and you're excited, or you're like, look, I just want to leave this here so I can go into the meeting and be my best self, or, I can hug my kids through what they're going through.
Right.
I can hear my husband. So you need an inner circle of at least 3, a therapist, and then you have people in each community that you're a part of that you really lean on. I mean, there were people in our CAP program that I talked to a lot offline.
Right.
And so, yeah, that energizes me. Did I answer the question, Adrian?
No,
I feel
no.
like I got a little off.
No, you did. No, you did answer the question, and even more so. And, I talk a lot about the best approach. And again, since this is, I'm so passionate about this, that's why I'm so excited about having this conversation with you about experiencing this malaise and dealing with mental health. And the way that I try to add value is what I call a framework I created called the Malaise to Mastery Map, which is based on these 3 pillars that I feel will help you become unstressed and unstuck at any age, but particularly in those middle years in midlife and mid-career, which those 3 pillars are: number 1, your mindset; number 2, your meaning; and 3rd, milestones. And let's break those down further. Number 1, mindset. It's all about reframing your mindset. What does it mean to be 40s? What does it mean to be in midlife? How do you see the power of that? Getting a growth mindset, understanding that you still can learn something new. You can stretch your skill set. You can just reframe. What does it mean to be in midlife, mid-career, 40 plus, and the power that comes with that? And then meaning, finding your meaning. What is your purpose? What is your why? What is your higher order being? How can you find fulfilling work? And then last but not least, establishing those milestones, which we want to talk about even more, because a lot of times when you're in your 40s and 50s, milestones are so important. And what do I mean by that? So when you're younger, a lot of times we have all of these milestones that have been externally placed upon us, right? We graduate high school is a milestone. We turn 18, it's a milestone. We turn 21, you're able to drink, right? For some of us who want to. 25, you have insurance milestones. You get married, you get your first job, you get your first promotion. And then even later, let's fast forward in your 60s or 70s, or even later than that, you may retire, you have grandkids. But in that middle, in those middle years, there tends to be an absence of celebratory milestones. It's like one long run-on sentence, no periods. And we lose sight of that. And that's why I think as that 3rd pillar of this Malaise to Mastery Map being milestones, it is so critical that we as 40s and 50s and midlifers and mid-career professionals, that we establish both micro and macro milestones, those measurable, manageable markers of success that we can celebrate, that we can strive for. It could be learning how to play the piano, learning a new language, starting a job, getting that career, that position you wanted at your company that you always wanted, learning a new skill, something simple or something grand, it doesn't matter. It's so important to establish those milestones, because what that does, that keeps you energized, and it reinforces that if you're in your 40s or your 50s or your 60s, you still can achieve a level of success. You still can celebrate. You still can reward yourself. So can you just talk about some of those milestones that you have gone through, that you have celebrated? And I'm assuming one could be, starting your business with Hampton Farms, or it could be something else. Can you just talk a little bit more about how the importance of goals and milestones have helped you, Zephrine, through your mental health journey?
Wow. I have to say, as you were talking, I was really thinking, and I was starting to see the milestones, but I hadn't really thought about them till the question. And so one of the milestones is that us moving to Colorado, and then I turned 40 once we moved here, and I had just a complete breakdown. Just nothing was working at all. And I said to myself and to my husband and all my close friends and my therapist, I was like, look, if I don't get it together, I just can't do this anymore. That's how low I was, that I could tell everybody, look, I'm checking out.
Okay.
And if I don't figure out whatever this is, and I don't even remember the time frame I gave myself, but I decided to then just do all these things. And one of them was I went out to a friend's birthday, and I was depressed and told her I didn't want to come. And she was like, come anyway. I love you regardless. And we did vision boards.
Wow.
And it was the hardest vision board I've ever done. It was so hard because I was like, nothing. I see nothing for myself. And I felt bad for not being happy with the life I was told you should be happy with. You have a spouse who can afford for you to stay home. You have 3 beautiful children. and you're still unhappy. And so what does that mean? And so all that to say is the vision board in 2022 came to fruition in ways I could never imagine. So that was a big thing. Is I'm big on vision boards or writing down your bullets of what you want to do, though, because you'll celebrate those milestones.
Yes. I love that story. That is so fascinating. And it just reinforces the importance and the power and the value of just doing, whether it's small wins or something small, but just getting you from that point A to point B and having something to reward yourself and then get you on that journey so you can accelerate your path to greatness. And I'm a fan of vision boards as well. I also invited my entire family to do vision boards. We're very late, but it's still 2022.
You can still do it.
We can still do it.
I did mine in August. It was August 2018, and it still came true.
Wow.
I'm actually going to do a post about that. Like it was yes. Do the vision boards, even when it feels like you have no vision whatsoever. Just, and my vision board was really simple. It was like pictures of plants and having a dinner outside in the backyard. And I remembered at the time being like, I don't even know how that's going to happen, but it started to happen. The opportunities, even applying to the CAP, was I love telling stories, and anybody who knows me knows that, like, my North Star is Oprah Gail Winfrey. I don't care what anybody has to say about her. Her platform has helped me since I was a little girl, right? She's been doing this since '86. So I would, see her after school. And so she talks about all these things, and I've always wanted to be a storyteller like her. And when the CAP opened up, I saw that as my opportunity to be, the Zephrine of my own life, but the Oprah of my own life. So, but you have to put it on the vision, so when the opportunity comes up, you can see it. At least that's my experience.
Wow, I love that, Miss Oprah Winfrey. And I just want to remind people who are listening who may not be familiar, when you reference CAP, it's the Creator Accelerator Program. For those of us, and Zephrine and I are been blessed and fortunate to be part of that, but for those outside of that may not understand this, it's the Creator Accelerator Program, which I would say is definitely, Zephrine, a huge milestone for you in your 40s to be accepted, but you had to be proactive and apply. And you went after it, and you got accepted. And
I almost didn't. That's something people need. I want to be real honest. Like, my mental health takes the challenges take no days off. So that morning I was going to send my application in. I had anxiety. My husband helped me edit the video. I was giving him all kind of attitude, and he was like, I know you're stressed, but if you could just work with me. If anybody's worked on a project with their significant other and that person doesn't really want to have a good attitude, you know what that feels like.
Oh, yeah.
And so there was this real moment of, like, me thinking, never mind, I'm not going to get in. Why am I bothering?
Right.
And so I really had to stand in the mirror and have an Issa Rae type moment and be like, listen, girl, listen, you are going to do this. I don't care. Even talking about Issa, she started on the web, right? So I'm like, this is a real thing. This could work out for you.
Yes. But
my mental health was like, nah, we can't take the disappointment. And so, you have to deal with your mental health in the 40s. Because a lot, like you said, there's so much coming at you that if you don't keep your mental health together, you will miss opportunities.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. This is an opportunity for me and for us to learn a little bit more about you. Before I let you, I want to ask you one more question. More question to get into more of your personality. Here we go. So, Zephrine, if there was a song that would play every time you walk in a room or walk on stage or down the street or walk into your farms and plant more lavender, that perfectly fits you and your story and the brand of Zephrine Hanson, what song would that be? What would be your own personal theme song?
My own personal theme song goes all the way back to 1986, and it's Janet Jackson's Control. It will be Janet Jackson for me forever and ever. I feel like she was letting me know how life would unfold, that, at some point you have to take the reins of your life on. And then just seeing her as an amazing artist and creative and everything that she's been through, ups and downs, albums, losing her brother. You know, he's Michael Jackson to us, but that was her brother,
Yes.
right? That's a whole nother vibe. Having children later, having a child later in life.
That's right.
I mean, when I hear that song and walk into the room, I know that I'm going to be taking care of me. And I feel that like on the farm, you can't, I mean, my only control at the farm is to show up and do the work. And so that's control to me. Like I can do that. So yes, Janet Jackson forever.
Now, as a Gen Xer, you know I love that song. As soon as you said it, I'm thinking like, this is a story about control of what I said. No, that's not. Don't even try to get me to start singing it right now. But I love that choice. It definitely fits you. When I was all right, here we go. All right, so anyway,
it's really Janet Jackson was telling me, and I signed up to join the military at 17 and a half. I didn't leave till 18.
See, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it was very much, and that came out in, like I said, 86.
Yeah, 86.
5 days before my birthday.
Oh no, 86. I remember. All right, so thank you so much for sharing your story, Zephrine. I truly enjoyed it, the theme song, but also just again for your candor. And just talking about your own mental health journey, just talking about your family, but also talking about how you are thriving in the way the world is set up through Hampden Farms, through your creative. I'm inspired. I'm inspired by you always. It was a pleasure joining you for the LinkedIn show, Creator Conversations. So I got to get a chance to get to know you more, and just you being here with me and having this conversation with our awesome audience is truly an honor. Zephrine, before we go, are there any other words of wisdom that you want to share with our listening audience, and for anyone, even for me, that you want to leave us with respect to managing your mental health in midlife and mid-career, being a professional in your 40s and 50s, or just mental health in general?
I'm going to leave it with mental health. I focus on taking care of yourself. Do not put it on the back burner. And it may be hard to first access. It can be hard to access therapy. So uplifting experiences. And, you know, for me, I spend a lot of time going on walks and taking pictures of trees. If you have a smartphone, that's relatively, inexpensive. You can just walk and be outside, lay down and just listen to some music, or, for those of you who love music, turn on the music and lock your door and dance like nobody's, watching. Like, there are inexpensive ways for us to move the energy that we don't know how to process. But I'm always going to say, like, get therapy, have a support system. I especially say that, to men, have a support system. I think women at times can be better at that because of the groups we may, move in and socialize.
Right.
But don't put your mental health on the back burner at all. That is just as important. It's more important than everything else. It really is, because you won't be able to be successful. So that's what I would absolutely leave you with. I mean, and if you're in your 40s, follow Adrian. Like, I was just fortunate enough to be in this wild accelerator with him, and I got to meet him, and I was like, that's exactly the information I wish I had 4 years ago. So if you're starting off, please continue to follow his content and see where you can get that support and guidance.
Well, Zephrine, I truly appreciate you. I thank you so much. And I appreciate what you're doing. And I'm honored to have this conversation with you, for sharing your story, for joining me. All right. That was the amazing, the wonderful Zephrine Hanson, veteran, storyteller, farmer, lavender farmer, by the way, and the founder of Hampden Farms. Oh, that was such a refreshing and very important conversation, because we talked about not only her great professional journey as an entrepreneur, as a creator, as a mother, as a wife, but also we talked about something that should be talked about more often, is mental health and wellness, especially for all of us who are 40 plus in midlife, where we have all of these things and dynamics coming at us. But honestly, it's an important conversation no matter your age. Thank you so much, Zephrine. It's always a joy chatting with you. It is always a joy. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please, if you did, please feel free to share this episode with your family, your friends, your colleagues on LinkedIn, whatever you feel free to share. And also, don't forget to go over to Gen X Amplified on Apple Podcasts to give us a rating or review, or wherever you like to listen to the podcast. And definitely go to adrianporter.com where you can learn more about me, catch more of the episodes, and also how I can add value to you. Again, as always, thank you so much for listening to Gen X Amplified, the podcast dedicated to you, the powerful and exceptional generation between those brilliant boomers and those magnificent millennials. Until next time, take care.